Of day one of the test match between Australia and New Zealand. I'm Steve Rebillard for ABC Sport, and for a while we thought we mightn't have any cricket for you tonight following several days of heavy rain in Wellington. We understand the pitch wasn't covered as well as it might have been, but since the rain has stopped, the ground staff have done a terrific job at the Basin Reserve. Play eventually got underway shortly after lunch, with Australia choosing to omit Merv Hughes and Simon O'Donnell, Greg Campbell and Steve Waugh getting the nod. Unhappily for the Kiwis, Martin Crowe not fit to play, but his brother Jeff was, and you might remember he played very well in the final of the one-day series on the weekend. Australia won the toss and elected to bat on a dubious pitch. Here's what happened. Richard Hadley is bowling to Mark Taylor.
So the first ball going straight through to wicketkeeper Ian Smith. Alan Border winning the toss and deciding to bat.
It was a difficult decision for the captains, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think anyone quite knew what this was going to do. It's probably a little under-prepared, through no one's fault, because the groundsman hasn't been able to work on it. How much moisture has got through? Difficult to tell what to do. I think John Wright was fairly glad in the end not to have to make the decision. I mean, if you get it wrong, you could be looking down the barrel at 298 for 3, or conversely, your inside could be 44 for 5. And,
yes,
you know,
right.
if you bat first and...
John Wright himself standing out wide at mid-off. There are 4 slips in a gully, so Wright is attacking here.
Isn't it interesting, the changes between one-day cricket, which we've been seeing endlessly just lately? We've got white clothes. They all look as though they've got the whitest white washing powder in the world. In the sun, they look lovely. A red ball and 4 slips in a gully.
Yes, that's right.
It's almost irreverent, isn't it? We got, including the wicketkeeper, 7 close fielders. We haven't seen that these last 3 weeks at all.
Well, good ball from Hadley. Taylor really had to clamp down on that fairly quickly. Let's have a look at this one. Taylor with some difficulty kept that one out. Didn't bounce much. Here's Danny Morrison then to Jeff Marsh. Oh, and an edge. The Marsh is underway. The ball's swinging. And it might, in fact, go all the way on this fairly slow outfield. It has. And 4 runs for Jeff Marsh. A most unconvincing shot.
But wasn't that a bad piece of fielding? I mean, it was the outswinger. It went all the way. It wasn't a very late outswinger. And that's Franklin there, I think, at third slip, isn't it? And I really felt that one... It went between 3 and 4, and I thought that they really should have stopped that. It's just the sort of start you don't want to give aside, to let the first edge go along the ground and through the fielder. I thought that was a really fairly ordinary piece of fielding, I must say.
And Marsh ducking. The ball hardly rose. And I'll be interested to see exactly what it hit.
Just two very strange deliveries there.
Ran off the shoulder.
Yes, Marsh lucky really on the first delivery he faced. The ball didn't really carry to the slips.
Well, we've certainly seen that this ball has the ability to swing, and Morrison has the ability to swing it. So those 4 slips could well be in business.
Jeff Marsh plays it on. And what a great breakthrough for New Zealand early on. Marsh out bowled by Morrison. And Australia 4 for 1.
Well, it yorked him, didn't it? Came back, I should think, off the inner bottom of the bat onto the leg stump. A very good ball by Morrison. A little bit of outswing on it, too. Yes, it went fairly low down the bat, off the inside edge. You see, he was playing forward with his bat a long way from his foot. He moved his foot across his front foot when the ball had gone, when the damage had been done.
So Jeff Marsh departs. Big breakthrough for New Zealand. He's out for 4 in the second over. As David Boone comes out to replace Jeff Marsh, who was out in this fashion. Ball well up from Danny Morrison. There it is. Took the leg stump as he played it on. The bail goes missing, and New Zealand have a significant breakthrough. This has been a very good partnership, the Taylor-Marsh combination, in the last 12 months. But it's ended right there by Danny Morrison. could have gone anywhere. Finished up in the slips. And applause breaks out for Danny Morrison, who took a wicket in that second over. And it's 4 for the loss of 1. Oh, Boone didn't know where that had finished up. Another one that could have been played on. Boone had a quick look round just to see that the castle was still intact.
He's much quicker now than he used to be, isn't he, Danny Morrison? I mean, he's very strong, but I mean, the pace of that almost disconcerted Boone, didn't it?
Yes, that came off the inside edge as well.
Well driven by Taylor, full of length from Morrison. The chase on here for John Wright down through mid-off. It's going to be 2 for Mark Taylor. So he's doubled his score. Richard Hadley now starting his 4th over, bowling to Boone. Big shot for LBW, is out. Great start for New Zealand, and Australia on the ropes now, 9 for 2.
Well, Richard Hadley, that was a good ball. It kept a little low. We'll have another look at it shortly. Here we are. Oh, yes, that one came back. Hit him just below the knee because he's a short man, David Boone. Would have hit probably middle and leg. Umpire Steve Woodward. He's a hard man to get decisions from, but he ruled in Hadley's favour, so Boone is gone.
Boone out for no score, and it's 9 for 2. Alan Border coming out at number 4 for Australia, and he's in because of the dismissal of David Boone.
Well, Boone just shuffled about on the crease, and that didn't bounce a great deal. There's no problem with height, and it kept fairly straight. Came back a little bit, but it would have hit, say, middle and leg. So not too much doubt about that one. But that brings Border, the left-hander, and Australia in all sorts of trouble at 9 for 2 wickets. Great start from New Zealand. Alan Border winning the toss, electing to bat.
4 slips a gully and 2 men in attacking positions in front of the wicket. Here's the first ball, and Border can't get off the mark. Nicely stopped in the gully by Ken Rutherford. Very nearly caught behind. The end of the over from Richard Hadley, a wicket maiden, and Australia 9 for 2. Oh, that's beautifully bowled. Beautifully bowled. And Mark Taylor really had no idea about that.
Yes, Mark Taylor expecting that ball to come back. How did he miss that? That was a glorious delivery. It moved away a little off the track. It was angling across him anyway. What a glorious delivery. He had to play at it. No question about that.
Mark Taylor's on 4, facing Morrison. He's gone too. LBW. New Zealand have Australia 3 wickets down, and there are just 9 runs on the board, and Taylor becomes Danny Morrison's 2nd wicket. Taylor pushing forward to the ball, which swung into him.
Yes, well, this ball swung into him. He pushed forward, and where's it hitting him? About the front foot. Well, there may have been a thought that it could have gone down leg, but I think it would have hit Middleton leg stump. There was a hint for a moment that he may have got a nick on it, but I don't think that was the case. But Mark Taylor is gone. 3rd wicket down.
9 for 3. Dean Jones coming out to bat at number 5 for Australia. In after 35 minutes play, and Dean Jones out because of this dismissal.
Morrison, the bowler, he's coming forward. He's hit very low. It's a foolish delivery. It was swinging into him. And Steve Dunn says that's out.
Yeah. Jones in action straight away, pulling away a short ball from Morrison. Snedden's down on the boundary at fine leg. Dean Jones feels as if he's in good form. Gets off the mark to the first ball he faced. That'll be a run for Border. There's nobody back behind John Wright on the offside. So once the ball is pushed up there, always an easy single. So Alan Border gets his first run.
Another appeal for LBW. He's out. Alan Border's gone. A 3rd LBW in the innings. And Australia 12 for the loss of 4. Danny Morrison has 3.
A magnificent ball from Morrison. Absolutely magnificent. Came back in slightly to border. He hadn't gone far enough forward, and that's disaster for Australia with their captain out. So the line that he was on, you can see he's right behind the crease, so he's right back, and the line he was playing was just on off stump, and it came in past the bat into the pads, and he's right back there. Look, it was no doubt for the umpire. Danny Morrison absolutely delighted by that, demanding it, getting his result.
Alan Border departs out for 1. Steve Waugh will replace him. It's 12 for 4. Another appeal, not really from Morrison this time. The slip fieldsmen are pretty enthusiastic, as well they should be. But Morrison, probably in a better position, didn't really go through with the appeal. Or used his feet that time, came down. Almost a one-day shot, charging at Hadley and getting 3 runs. Running just as well as we saw in the one-day series. Magnificent runner between wickets, but that was an interesting approach by Jones. Oh, that really was a poor shot by Jones. He saw it up there and he couldn't resist the temptation. I think he forgot the fact that it was 15 for the loss of 4 and really went for it.
The $1 million shot. You could see the dollar signs clanging all over his eyes.
That's a nice stroke from Jones. It was dropped short by Hadley. Now, ordinarily, that would go to the fence once it got onto the practice pitches. But it looks like it's going to just miss out. But they'll have time to run 4. In fact, Jones is so quick. Surprising they didn't run 5. But 4 runs to Dean Jones, all run. Well, that was in the air a bit. John Wright chasing, and they'll only get the 1 run. The New Zealanders were pretty keen on that. Wright diving to his left.
See, it was in the air for a time, but it always bounced wide of and short of Wright. So it didn't give him a chance, really, but it was just momentarily a hint of some profit there for the New Zealanders, with the New Zealand skipper getting to it quickly and having it run past him.
Danny Morrison about to start a new over. Oh, that's a magnificent stroke by Jones. Over toss by Morrison, but Jones, who's in supremely good form, cracks it to the fence.
A superb shot from Jones, with Morrison keeping the ball up. There's a very fine margin between a bowling on a good length and over tossing a little, and Jones just picked that one up and hit it down to the gap down to mid-on, which is a very strong shot indeed. It's not the easiest shot to play an on drive like that, and he did hit it so well. It was a very tightly controlled shot. But Morrison won't be too unhappy about that. If he's going to play his strokes, he's going to give the bowler a chance.
Driving on the onside this time, and that one's heading out to the fence as well. That's another beautifully timed shot. A second boundary for Dean Jones. He goes to 19, and Australia rushed to 29 for 4.
Yes, again, a class shot from a very good player indeed. Just hitting that ball a little bit wider, and not quite as well timed as the previous one, but a much more difficult stroke again. Just hitting it wider. The timing can go from you, and still racing across a very slow outfield into the wettest part of the ground under the Vance stand. And Jones with his 3rd boundary. No, 2nd boundary. They ran 4.
Yes, it's an almost unbelievable sight. 29 for 4, Australia. Something of a recovery, though. It was 12 for 4 at one stage. And Richard Hadley now bowling to Stephen Waugh, and John Morrison's back.
Yes, afternoon, Grant. Quite an incredible start from New Zealand's point of view, as you say. Dean Jones coming out with the same enthusiasm as we've always seen him, and he really just doesn't lie down, this guy. He takes the attack to the opposition, and he's looked good. The wicket looks slowish. It's certainly giving variation of bounce. It's not really giving seam, sideways movement, that is. But it is the variation of bounce that have worried the Australians. Seen 3 LBWs. Really, they've been born out of the fact that the batsmen have got very tentative and looked unsure as to what the ball's going to do. And of course, we must give credit to the bowlers who've bowled a good line, good attacking stuff, kept the ball up.
Oh, that went through the hands of John Wright, I think. It's heading out towards the boundary. It's a very long chase. And the way these two guys run, they could almost go 5, I think. They'll certainly run 4. 4 runs, all run for Stephen Waugh.
Yes, it's interesting that that went through Wright's hands with the slower pitch, and it is slow. Look at the bounce on this one. It was in the air for away. He's close enough there to make catching it directly off the face of the bat very difficult, but it certainly passed him on the full, so it's sort of half a catch, I suppose.
They'll get a single this time. Wright's after it. They might even get a couple. Jones is down like a shot and is back to the non-strikers in. Well run for 2.
Yes, and doesn't he turn so quickly? He really gives himself the chance of the second run, because he gets the first one over and done with and on the way for the second, and then makes the decision.
Driven in the air, caught. Jones is out. Caught by John Wright. And it's 38 for 5.
Well, Jones trying to attack Martin Snedden. Martin Snedden a little slower than Danny Morrison. The ball wasn't quite there. And he drove, but he drove in the air, and it went straight to John Wright, that was in a wide-ish mid-off position. And let's have a look at it. Snedden, the bowler from the northern end, it swung away. It wasn't quite there. He went to drive, didn't get over it, hit it straight to Wright, and isn't he thrilled?
John Wright delighted. Not so Dean Jones. And Australia 38 for 5. New man for Australia is Ian Healy, and he comes to the crease because of this incident.
Yes, Snedden, the bowler, and going to drive it. He was just a little bit too keen to get out at Jones. The ball wasn't there to drive. It moved away in the air, and he had to reach. Reaching for it, didn't keep the ball down, and hit it straight to John Wright, the skipper.
Well, that's a funny old shot from Healy. He didn't really have to play it. A tentative jab. Snedden gets applause for a wicket in that over, and it's 38 for 5. Hadley diving, can't stop this one, heading out to the fence for 4 runs. Waugh chasing that one wide and gets 4 runs.
A slightly surprising shot from Steve Waugh, because the ball was very wide, and we've seen him play 1 or 2 shots to balls that have been wide. It was foolish. He got it away all right and picked up 4, but one gets the feeling he is batting like a batsman out of form, and that he's charging at the odd ball that's not really on to hit.
Bowled him. What an awful shot from Ian Healy. And Snedden bowls it straight, and Healy goes. It's 44 for 6.
Well, Ian Healy played a surprising shot to this. He tried to swing it away on the leg side, as if trying to hook or pull the delivery. Here it is shortish, tried to swing it away, didn't bounce much, and look, it took the off stump out of the ground. Awful looking shot, but Healy's gone. Well, that tells the story.
Ian Healy disappears. It's 44 for 6. Peter Taylor is the new batsman for Australia, batting unbelievably at number 8 in the order, and he's there because of this. Ian Healy absolutely castled, trying to pull the ball from his off stump. And whatever angle you look at it from, it's a poor shot, and it's a good result for New Zealand. Here we go again. Off stump goes missing. Ian Healy out without scoring. And Peter Williams has come in now.
So Peter Taylor facing up to Martin Snedden. And Snedden with a stifled appeal for LBW first up. 44 for 6. Well, John, we've seen some quite staggering sessions in Test cricket in this country over the last 10 years. One remembers back to 1984 when England, after waiting around all day, lost, what, 7 or 8 wickets in the 2 hours play that day. We saw the West Indies Test at Christchurch in 1987. The entire first day washed out. The West Indies batted on the second morning and they lost 7 by lunchtime as well. And here we are, 44 for 6 after a delayed start because of rain. Snedden bowling to Taylor. Taylor coming well forward. Steve Dunn says not out. I suppose the common thread through all those sessions, the preamble to them, was a big delay in the start of play because of rain.
Yes, interesting. It's very difficult for the players to get into the mood often, and here's this appeal from Taylor. Just doing a bit much. It would have gone down leg side. Yes, interesting, isn't it, Peter? And really, I think the great thing about it is, apart from New Zealand doing well, if you're a New Zealand supporter, is that it sets the game up. The gauntlet is thrown down. They have to do some playing now, both sides, and we can look forward to a result.
Martin Snedden has bowled 3 overs. He's got 2 for 5. It's 44 for 6. Squeezed away between third slip and gully. John Bracewell with the chase from second slip. And there's 3 very comfortably with no man down at third man, and the outfield here still slow because of the rain. So that's the Australian 50 up in rather painstaking fashion for them. 51 for 6 wickets in the 22nd over. So Bracewell now to bowl his second over. His first one was a maiden, an over in which he extracted some considerable spin, but he's bowling now for the first time to a right-hander. So there's a slip and a forward short leg and 2 men catching close on the leg side. Snedden is fairly square down behind the umpire on the leg side, so it's a couple of runs for Steve Waugh. So 2 men in close catching positions on the leg side for the batting of Steve Waugh. Waugh reaches for it. He's got it through the cover field on this occasion. That was a bad ball. That'll go for 4. It was wide. It gave Waugh some width, and he swung his arms freely and hit it nicely for 4.
So the gauntlet is thrown down here, no question.
Snedden now to Steve Waugh. Nice shot into the offside, finds the gap between point and cover. John Wright with a long chase out to deep extra cover out towards the practice wicket area. And there's time for 3 runs very comfortably for Steve Waugh. Takes him to 24, his first runs for a while. And the over completed, it's 67 for 6. 67 for 6, 4 runs from the first over after afternoon tea, with Waugh and Peter Taylor still together. A change in the bowling now at the R.A. Vance stand end, the northern stand end, and Richard Hadley's going to come back. The wind has swung around. It was a light southerly when play got underway, but it's just a very light breeze. Now it's blowing mainly from the north, so Hadley's going to have the assistance of that. He'll be able to put the spinnaker up and have 3 slips and a gully, as well as a forward short leg. Bowled in! Magnificent delivery. Far too good for Stephen Waugh. Just when the partnership was assuming nuisance value, Stephen Waugh is cleaned out for 25. What a great delivery this was from Richard Hadley. Close into the stumps, past the outside edge.
Yes, lovely delivery from Hadley. Absolutely magnificent. Just beating the outside edge, moving a shade in the air, moving a wee bit off the pitch, taking the top of the off stump. Classic Hadley delivery. Waugh is gone.
70 for 7. The new batsman for Australia is Greg Campbell, coming out at number 9. And he's there because of this great delivery, which disturbed the castle in no uncertain terms of Steve Waugh.
Yes, a superb ball from Hadley. It curved in the air. It drew Waugh forward. He was playing a pretty immaculate-looking shot, and then it moved away a little. It moved away a little more off the pitch, took the top of the off stump. Well bowled.
New over starting. Snedden bowling to Peter Taylor. So Campbell in at the non-striker's end, and now a chance for New Zealand to really rattle through 9, 10 and Jack and get Australia out for under 100 and get themselves in tonight. Nicely worked by Taylor. The chase on for Jones with the helmet on. But because the ball was played into space, time for 2 comfortable runs for Peter Taylor. That takes him to 12. 73 for 7. Martin Snedden's bowled 4 no balls. Nicely played by Campbell. Gets himself off the mark. Martin Snedden doing the fielding. Done it fine leg. A no ball. In the Australian dressing room, David Byrne. Carl Rackerman next in. Merv Hughes not playing in the match. Oh, and that was in the air, but past third slip. That'll race off down to the boundary at third man for 4. And Trevor Franklin not able to move to his left in time to pull that in. There's 1 ball left in the over, of course, because of the no ball. But it's 2 for 25 for Hadley. And Peter Taylor taking his first boundary in rather streaky fashion. He's 16.
Yes, I'm interested to see where this ball actually went. He certainly got an edge. It was in the air, but how wide of it was, we can't really see from that shot how wide it was of Trevor Franklin, who's in third slip.
Richard Hadley's completed his 11th over. He's got 2 for 25. It's 80 for 7.
Peter Taylor just taking a single off the first ball of Richard Hadley's next over, turning away on the leg side. And so Taylor with that single goes now to 18, and it's 85 now for the loss of 7. Australia have Rackerman and Alderman remaining.
Which is hardly Bradman and Hammond, is it?
Not really.
To come.
Hadley now to bowl to Campbell. Campbell is on 2. Well, that caught the edge and wasn't fielded. And time for 1, maybe 2, in fact, an easy 2, as Bracewell goes after it. Ken Rutherford misfielding in the gully. The ball perhaps bouncing awkwardly for him.
Yes, he didn't somehow go for it too convincingly.
John Gallagher, the All Black fullback, on the left. Sir Bob Jones on the
John
right.
Gallagher's quite a cricket supporter, isn't he?
Oh, loves it. Another appeal for RBW. He's gone. Campbell is out.
That was out. I gave that out too. I mean, it was absolutely plumb. It nipped back a fraction the other way. It hit him low down, and the answer to that was, you're right, it wouldn't have hit the leg. You're also right, it wouldn't have hit the off, but my goodness me, it had broken the middle in several pieces.
So the end of Greg Campbell, the 4th LBW decision of the innings. Have a look at this one. It looks pretty adjacent. It is. Steve Dunn has the left finger aloft. Campbell departs 87 for 8.
I must say, as an umpire, he raises his finger in a rather conversational way, doesn't he? As if to say, it gives me more pain than you.
Campbell out for 4, 87 for 8. Carl Rackerman comes out to replace Greg Campbell, 87 for 8. And Richard Hadley is the bowler.
You know what we're now looking in the face? Just 2 wickets to go. Hadley on song, his 100th offering of 5 wickets or more in a first-class match, which will be a phenomenal performance, won't it?
That's right.
I know he has the record in Test cricket. He's 2 or 3 ahead of Ian Botham, isn't he? And I cannot remember the figure. But that's a pretty aggressive field, isn't it?
No ball from Hadley. He'll get another one in this over. 87 for the loss of 8. Australia's lowest score against New Zealand is 103. It's now 88 for 8. Peel for a caught behind. Not out, says Steve Dunn. Ian Smith claiming the catch. Richard Hadley not very happy.
I think Richard actually was playing it both ways then. He was appealing for LBW to start with, then they went for the catch.
End of the over, 88 for 8. Peter Taylor running very quickly for the first. Danny Morrison closing. Taylor's committed himself. Morrison throwing to the far end, and Rackerman, who's not all that quick, lumbering his way down the pitch, has made it.
A good throw by Morrison to the bowler's end, then I think might well have found Rackerman a little short.
Yes, he's a big man, Carl Rackerman. He takes a while to get up steam. And Danny Morrison lets the ball go, and you can see that Rackerman's only halfway at that stage. But the throw was offline. No shot played, and that's always a dangerous one.
That
Not
was, it couldn't have been all that far away, but I felt the angle of he'd had to, bowling over the wicket there to the left-hander, he'd have had to brought it back an awful long way for it to have bowled him. I'm not sure. It was a good appeal. I would have thought probably the batsman deserved the benefit there. Umpire Woodward looking a very professorial figure at the other end, isn't he? I tell you what, I bet Richard Hadley can't wait to get that ball in his hand at the start of the next over.
Of Hadley now to Rackerman. Two runs for Carl Rackerman. He's looking for a third, but just the two.
Wright can be delighted, firstly, that he lost the toss today and didn't have to make a decision. Secondly, with the performance of his bowlers. He's been able to run things beautifully.
Nicely played by Taylor as the ball was swinging into him, onto his pads, clipping it down to fine leg for one. Taylor gets it fine, and Danny Morrison with the chase. They'll be able to scamper through for two pretty comfortably. Danny Morrison down towards that boundary, which has been brought in front of the R.A. Van stand. That's the wet part of the ground, and the problem was solved by shortening the boundary down there by about 8 or 9 yards.
Which is very good sense. Wouldn't it have been crazy if they didn't play the game just because that particular part of the outfield was too wet?
Couldn't agree more.
Very good compromise.
It's all in shadow at the moment too, so the drying capability of the sun has been lost down in that area because of that particular part of the ground, or the particular part of the ground that it's in. So Peter Taylor playing a fine hand at number 8 for Australia. He's 23 and facing Martin Snedden. No third man in, so a chase for John Bracewell from second slip. And Peter Taylor now becomes equal top score as Australia get close to their 100.
And the two of them, Waugh and Taylor, who have the top score equal at the present time, have been the two who've played best on the pitch. They've been prepared to adjust their stroke making to the conditions, have decided that they know what's required, and have played accordingly. It's been very sensible play from Taylor right from the start. Both Taylor and Waugh applied themselves diligently, and Waugh just got a ball that was absolutely unplayable.
That's the end of the over from Martin Snedden. 4 runs came from it, and Australia 98 for 8. Now it's Carl Rackerman in strike. Hadley with 3 for 33 to bowl his 15th over now. 3 slips and a gully close in, as well as a forward short leg. Slower ball, and that was really too good for Rackerman, who was deceived by it.
Again, a wonderful ball, held back, slower in the air, therefore not as much bite into the pitch, and it virtually died on landing, and Rackerman lunging for it, lurching towards it, not sure of where it was, and lucky to be there. Look at the spring in Hadley's step.
Yes, earlier this week when the story of his retirement came out, he seemed to almost be writing himself off, didn't he? Saying that he'd lost a yard of pace, didn't have the zip to be able to beat batsmen off a leg. Yeah. Well,
wasn't fielding well.
Nicely played by Rackerman. John Wright has the chase, and Rackerman again declines the chance of the second run.
Last ball of the over.
No ball. So Taylor gets the single, but there's still one more for Carl Rackerman to have to negotiate before the over can be completed. The Australian 100 is up. It's taken them 41 overs and 5 deliveries, and it's cost them 8 wickets. Martin Snedden starting his 14th over, bowling to Taylor. Over the top of Rackerman. That was a bold shot, well ducked by Rackerman. And once again, they decline the opportunity for the 3rd run.
Well, it seemed as they were running then that Peter Taylor was giving Rackerman the option. As he came back for the 2nd one, with Great Bats chasing it right down towards the long off boundary, Taylor put his hands aside and just said, "Do you want it or not?" And obviously Rackerman said, "No, you keep it. It was the first ball of the over. You can get some more." So maybe they're going to try and attack Snedden a wee bit to try and pick up what they can.
Taylor's 28. Very nearly chopped it on.
It's twice now that Taylor's had that. One went very close to the offside. It went on the offside of the stumps down to Smith, who was moving very quickly, running a long way out on the onside. But you can see an inside edge with the ball. I think it seemed away from him, and he overcompensated a little bit and went very close to the stumps indeed. Taylor, no idea where it's gone. A quick jerk of the head. He's safe.
And well played by Taylor as he retains the strike for the next over. Danny Morrison does the fielding at short fine leg. 103 for 8. And that's the end of Martin Snedden's 14th over. He's got 2 for 30. So Australia have equalled their lowest ever score against New Zealand. This is the 26th time that New Zealand and Australia have played test matches against each other. It's the 5th at the base, and only one of them's been a result. And that was that rather infamous match, as far as New Zealand were concerned, back in 1946, when Australia won inside 2 days. It's well stopped by Andrew Jones under the helmet at forward short leg. Yes, Richard Hadlee began bowling at 20 minutes to 5. He came out after tea from this end.
He's in his 16th over, has 3 for 35. Would like to keep going, but there's a limit. And he's obviously got to be conscious of the fact that there's still 4 days of this test match to go.
Still getting movement in the air as it drifted into the left-hander. This is the 7th over of his spell. His opening spell was also one of 7.
Was it 7 or 9? I thought he went through quite a long way in his first spell. There was 7, then they had drinks, didn't he? And he carried on for a bit.
Yeah, in fact, he bowled 9 overs.
That's right. Yeah. Which was longer than you would expect for Hadlee, but of course they were going so well then. This is wonderful cricket with Hadlee. I think he's knows too that he's not going to bowl too many balls more, so he's trying everything.
Here's the best ball he's bowled today, which dismissed Stephen Waugh.
Now that's just about unplayable, isn't it? You can see that the ball looked as if it was drifting down leg side. Waugh shaped a defensive stroke and then saw to his horror the ball past the offside and into the off stump.
Oh, and that's brilliantly caught! What a fantastic catch! We've talked about John Wright's fielding a few times this summer, and he's pulled in the odd beauty, but that was magnificent. That was done with his left hand. Richard Hadlee's got his 4th wicket, and Peter Taylor's brave innings comes to an end with his score at 29. It's 103 for 9, and look at this.
And Taylor just smiling ruefully because he knew he played a reasonable shot to that. It was in the air, it was wide of right, and look at that. You're dead right, absolutely correct, Peter. We've talked about John Wright's fielding during this season, and he's done some wonderful things, some horrible things. That was one of the better ones.
Peter Taylor out for 29. It's 103 for 9, and drinks are on the field.
Snedden now to Rackerman. Racked it back, and it was a no ball. A fair bit of bat on that one.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I mean, they've got nothing to lose now, really, and trying to get as many runs as they can. That was obviously Peter Taylor's intention. And Carl Rackerman, I think, guessing that Terry Alderman perhaps won't last too long at the other end, is looking to get some runs for himself, perhaps.
is John Wright, who's taken 2 catches today. And we'll have a look at the last one very shortly. Amazing catch to dismiss Peter Taylor. Earlier, though, he took Dean Jones, so it's been a good day for John Wright. The ball's been following him a bit.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's sort of a reversal of form in terms of your fielding. Yeah, John's been sort of struggling a bit, I suppose, in the one-day games, but 2 sensational catches today, you know. It's...
Right, sorry.
To see if Martin Snedden can bowl a dot ball and give Paddles his chance.
Well, he wouldn't get the ball off Richard Hadley now. This is the big chance he's been waiting for. Danny Morrison took 3 of the first 4. I thought it was going to be a 5-wicket bag for Danny again.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's done the job. Taking the top off the the Australian top order is the most important thing. He's done that brilliantly.
Rackerman opening up here, and a couple of runs for Carl Rackerman. As the over comes to an end, it's 110 now for the loss of 9 wickets. Now Hadley to bowl to Alderman. Here's Murphy, who's just threw the towel down to you, Martin. He tried to upset us at the toss this morning by rolling the ball across.
Yeah, I've had chewing gum thrown at me this afternoon too, so it's... He's obviously been bored with proceedings.
110 for 9, Hadley to Alderman.
That's it.
That's it.
Done it. Well done.
Richard Hadley has his 100th bag of 5 in first-class cricket, his 35th bag of 5 in Test cricket, and Australia are out for 110.
Isn't he amazing? Unbelievable. He seems to predict these things.
Certainly the man for the occasion, Richard Hadley, and the Basin Reserve crowd stands to him.
Well, it could have been worse, but I wonder if Alan Border had his time over again if he wouldn't have asked New Zealand to bat first. Australia only just avoided its record low score of 103, all out for 110. Looking down the list, only 3 players made it to double figures. Dean Jones with 20, Steve Waugh with 25, and Peter Taylor a very valuable 29. And as I say, it could have been worse at one stage, 6 for 44. Richard Hadley was the chief destroyer, taking 5 for 39, and that's the 35th time in Test cricket he's had a 5-wicket haul. Morrison took the bulk of the early wickets, finishing with 3 for 22, and Snedden took 2 for 33. One of those was Dean Jones. So not a big total to protect for Australia, but they did get a quick tilt at the Kiwis before stumps. The opening batsmen are John Wright and Trevor Franklin.
Terry Alderman to open the bowling from the northern end with Trevor Franklin to take strike. 2 slips and a gully and 2 men in close catching positions on the leg side. We'll look at that field for you in a moment. Here's Alderman. First ball to Franklin. So Terry Alderman, the scourge of England during the Ashes series last year. And look at those 2 men in close on the leg side. Just the 2 slips. Alderman essentially a medium pacer who relies on swing and on cut off the pitch. Just 2 slips in the gully, and then Henry, those 2 men close in on the leg side.
Well, the one at short mid-wicket, rather straight mid-wicket, who's now being moved, Jones there, who was that was the position which completely disrupted Graham Gooch, and that Border used with great success against the Englishman.
So now Jones going across to silly mid-off. But Terry Alderman, like Danny Morrison and Richard Hadley, were able to do earlier in the day, getting considerable movement in the air away from the right-hander.
Peter, if you were a scriptwriter, a drama scriptwriter, maybe you are in your spare time, I bet you would have never dared write a script as this one is unwound today. Who could possibly have given Richard Hadley another 5-wicket haul? His 100th in first-class cricket, his 35th in Test cricket, on this his last appearance in New Zealand.
With Hadley, you never predict anything, Henry.
Extraordinary, wasn't it? What a wonderful farewell for him.
Trevor Franklin, this will be a nervous time for him as he faces up to Terry Alderman. Trevor Franklin getting well forward, using that 6'6" that he has to get onto the front foot and try and negate anything that Terry Alderman is going to do off the pitch.
He's played this over most convincingly so far. He's got well forward. He hasn't sort of shuffled, which so many players have done, then found that they're in front of middle stump and the umpire's got his finger up.
So the shadows beginning to lengthen on this beautiful autumn evening at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Terry Alderman to Franklin. That's well bowled. That did do something, and Trevor Franklin just playing down the wrong line and comprehensively beaten as it swung across him.
I tell you what, Peter, it did something pretty late too, didn't it? Left him a beautiful delivery.
So one ball left in Terry Alderman's first over. Alderman and Carl Rackerman surely will be the new ball attack for Australia. Greg Campbell at first change. Peter Taylor to bowl his off spinners later. Appeal for LBW as the ball balloons away to David Boone. The first over completed. It's a maiden, and New Zealand none for none.
New Zealand still with no runs on the ball. Here's Alderman now bowling to Franklin. Appeal for LBW. Ball going away down the leg side. The first run has come, and it's a leg by, signalled by Steve Dunn. This ball from Alderman looks to be heading down leg side, and that is the ruling from Steve Dunn. So the first run on the board. Here's Alderman now to right. And John Wright has his first run, and the first run off the bat in the innings. And New Zealand go to 2 without loss. Guided away nicely by Trevor Franklin. His first runs. Ball heading off down towards the fence. It won't quite make it. The batsman should have time for 3 runs. Oh, dear. Spectacular stuff from Mark Taylor. Marvellous performance by Taylor. The shot was well played by Franklin, running it away. And it's been a fairly wet outfield today. And have a look at Taylor just as he arrives at the ball. And bends to pick it up. And oh, marvellous performance. That's bowled very short. Right has helped it away down towards fine leg. Rackerman is doing the chasing, and the batsmen have time for 2 runs, enabling John Wright now to go to 3 and the total to 13. Nicely turned by Franklin. You'll have time for a couple here as Boone goes chasing back. In fact, the fieldsman is finally Jeff Marsh. So 2 runs for Trevor Franklin. He goes to 11, and the New Zealand total 15 without loss. Well turned again by Trevor Franklin. Just the time for 1 run this time. .16 without loss. Rackerman to right. Nicely turned by John Wright. There might be 2 here. Yes, they are going to go for the second. Trevor Franklin bustling back for the second. 2 to right, and New Zealand 18 without loss. Here's Rackerman now bowling to right. So we come to the end of the last over of this rather sensational day's play here at the Basin Reserve, and it's Rackerman bowling to right, who allows it to pass by to Ian Healy, the keeper, and the players leave the field on a day that was somewhat shortened, but a day in which New Zealand bowled Australia out for just 110 runs and have successfully negotiated through to 18 without loss at stumps.
So the Australian bowlers unable to make an impression on the Kiwi openers, none for 18 at stumps. The star of the first day, undoubtedly the man the Kiwis like to call Sir Richard. He's talking to Gordon Bray.
You must be walking on cloud 9 at the moment.
Yes, well, I think the whole team is for sure. They, funnily enough, had John Wright won the toss, he would have gambled today and he would have bowled, and so it's worked out exceptionally well for us. And, you know, by all accounts, though, I think Alan Border probably made the right decision in batting because it looked as though it was going to be a pretty good batting pitch. The ball was always going to be a little bit slow and keep a little bit low, but I think it was just a bit too paced today, and, you know, the Australian technique where they sort of hovered around the crease a bit, they did struggle a bit, and the ball moved appreciably in the air. And, of course, to get early wickets with a swinging ball and to hit the stumps 4 times and 4 LBWs means that we've kept the ball up and bowled pretty straight today.
Yes, bowling as full as you did. Was that the key?
I think so, because the breeze was right for us and it did swing a lot. And I don't think the Australians generally play the swinging ball or the seaming ball particularly well, particularly in our conditions, and really it was summed up pretty well by our bowlers today.
What do you think was the best ball you bowled today?
Well, it had to be to Steve Waugh. I think he really got a jaffer today, where he played the right line. He played about middle, and then he lost his off dolly. And so really the one that just nipped away, but he got the classic delivery, and he did nothing wrong.
And you were looking very hungry, a bit like a spring chicken towards the end there with the 5 wickets coming up.
Well, I was hungry for that because I needed that 5-wicket bag to reach 100 5-wicket bags, which I suppose equates to 100 hundreds for a batsman. And I think in modern-day times, not many bowlers have done that, certainly fast bowlers. I know that Derek Underwood did it, and I think Norman Gifford was not too far from doing it. But certainly Marshall and Imran and these blokes would be well short. So a major milestone, and ready to go out this way. It couldn't be better for me.
Any special motivation for the Kiwis today?
Yes, I think we've been a little bit hurt and disappointed with our performances, particularly in the one-day series. Disappointed too with 1 or 2 comments that have been made about our lacklustre performances. And so we were all fired up today, and we had to focus and change direction and get our thoughts on the game, eliminate all our distractions that may have been sort of upsetting us a bit, and really go out there with a confidence and belief in ourselves, which is what the Australians have had for such a long time. And I think we're very aware that the Australians have reached 400 in the first innings on many, many occasions, and all it needed was something sensational to turn that around. And we bowled out for 110 today. Well, that's cricket, I guess, but no, we really did the job well, very professionally today.
Steve Rebilliard for ABC Sport, welcoming you to highlights of day 2 of the Trans-Tasman Test between Australia and New Zealand. Well, again, it was a sodden basin reserve which greeted players this morning, and it wasn't until 3:30 this afternoon New Zealand time that play could recommence. Australia, of course, had a disastrous first day, bundled out for 110 after winning the toss and electing to bat. The New Zealand openers saw out the first day without drama to be none for 18 overnight. So it's John Wright and Trevor Franklin to resume batting. Your commentators at the Basin Reserve, Henry Blofeld and Grant Nesbitt.
Set to go then, the first ball of the day, with New Zealand 18 without loss, and Terry Alderman the bowler to Trevor Franklin. Loud appeal for LBW early on. Not out, says the umpire. Well, that's a promising start by Terry Alderman. Let's have a look at this one, Henry.
He's tall, isn't he? And he's forward 6, 7 feet. That would be from the wicket, wouldn't it? It was rising. There must have been an element of doubt, I would have thought. What do you think?
Yes, I agree with you, Henry. Sun shining now at the Basin Reserve. 18 without loss. Here's Alderman to Franklin. Once again takes the pad. Again Franklin is well forward. Again Steve Dunn says not out. And that's the end of the first over on the second day's play. Let's just go back to the first ball of this over, and Greg Campbell bowling to John Wright. It was short, and Wright went back and hit it away in the air for some time, as you could see, but wide of the fieldsman, and it went to the fence finally for 4 runs.
Short balls wide of the off stump are meat and drink to John Wright, aren't they? He hit it very well indeed. I should think he knew where Border was and hit it just square, just forward of him, in the air, not worrying. He could place that, I think, pretty well.
That's the end of the over from Campbell. So New Zealand have added 4 so far today, and it's 22 without loss. Here's Alderman again, 22 without loss. Trevor Franklin hasn't scored as yet today. He has now, though, nicely turned away through mid-wicket. Dean Jones chasing. They'll have time for 2. And they'll settle for those 2 runs. So Franklin underway for today. He moves now to 14. And the New Zealand total to 24 without loss.
Yes, I can think of other fielders to whom there would have been a 3rd run, but batsmen in their right mind don't take on Jones's throw. It comes in low and arrow-like accuracy into the wicketkeeper's gloves. A marvellous fielder.
Next man in for New Zealand, Andrew Jones. Here's Alderman to Franklin. single here. Just nudged away wide of Boone, backward of square. And so Franklin with that single moves now to 15. And the New Zealand total 25 without loss. Remember, yesterday Australia dismissed for just 110.
Bit edgy from Franklin, but he'll certainly pick up one here. In fact, he'll pick up 4. I thought there was a third man in, but there wasn't. So 4 runs to Trevor Franklin. Maybe that's a situation where if the slip field had been there, they might have prevented that.
Yeah, well, what I'm really trying to say is that if you create a few gaps like mid-on, mid-off, then you get the batsman perhaps loosening up a little bit and driving at the ball.
There it is there. There's only one slip in. There's a man short on the offside, and there's 2 short on the leg side, both forward of square. Quite a strange-looking field as Campbell makes his way in. All edgy, but it dropped short, and it's run away for another 4. Frustration for the Australians, and there's another example of the ball edging, going through the slips.
Yeah, this is good bowling by Campbell. He's certainly producing the right sort of delivery, but of course the slips aren't there to sort of cover it.
Just dropping short of the only slip there, Terry Alderman, who's in at first slip, but he's rather a lonely figure. No further slips or gully in position. So Trevor Franklin, with those 2 4s, races on to 23. New Zealand to 33 for no wicket. Struck on the pad, now to peel, but reasonably well forward. No interest from Steve Woodward.
Yeah, this ball just come back a little bit, Trevor, and he's probably looking to cover that outswing, which he's had the last 2 balls, and he's got outside the line. He's well forward, pretty safe there.
So there's the New Zealand board at the moment, looking healthy, no wicket, and Trevor Franklin there on 23, John Wright on 9. Remember, Australia out yesterday for 110, so great opportunity for New Zealand to get to dig in and build the big innings. John Wright on strike now, and Terry Alderman, he's been around for a while, Martin, a very good bowler.
Yes, excellent performer. As you can see, he gets in close and bowls wicket to wicket, and he's really looking for the LBW, or if the batsman miss it, to hit the stumps. Again, I question this sort of interesting field he's got with the short legs and the short mid wickets and covers. I'd like to leave those open personally and get the batsman to drive into those gaps and perhaps produce a mistake.
Good-looking shot from Wright, but there's a man very square, fine leg, or really deep backward square, so only 1 run to John Wright. And the Australian batting yesterday, what do you make of that?
I was a little surprised, to be honest, thinking about it at the end of the day's play. I couldn't quite believe their approach, and I guess you've got to put it down to their lack of preparation going into this test match. Both sides really didn't have the kind of preparation you'd want. And I don't think they really adjusted from the one-day series. They seem to play a lot of one-day shots and really paid for it.
So Trevor Franklin on strike. Well covered by Franklin, forward. And the New Zealanders have made a good start. Pretty solid stuff last night.
Yes, it was. It was the right thing to get through. Runs aren't important, really, for the first 15, 20 overs of this innings. It's a matter of consolidating, getting a good start. Like the likes of Trevor Franklin here, really trying to dig in and make an impression in this match, just to get a foundation for New Zealand. And, of course, John Wright in good form. They're looking pretty solid, and that's a good sign.
Struck on the pad again, but well forward and well outside the off-stump, Franklin. Yes, the pitch yesterday seemed to have some variation of bounce and pace, but didn't seem to do a great deal sideways.
No, that's right. There's not a lot of grass, green grass really on this pitch, and it looked pretty slow and came through very low at times. And really, the wicket wasn't the downfall of the Australian batsmen. It was really good, straight, full bowling from the New Zealanders, swinging the ball, and really lack of discipline from the Australians. It really sort of all added up to a pretty disastrous total for Australia.
There's the Trevor Franklin statistics on Test cricket. Well forward covering it, and he looks like he really is concentrating out there, Trevor Franklin. He's had a mixed career, really, hasn't he? When did he first come in?
I think he came in on the Tour of England in 1983. He came in for the last Test match at Trent Bridge, and you know, he hasn't really had a sort of a long run at opening the batting, because it's not an easy spot, especially in conditions like New Zealand. And I just hope that he gets a score in this game and he goes to England and gets an established position in the side, because he's a player with a lot of ability.
Just squeezes this one out and it runs away off the face through the vacant gully position, and Trevor Franklin gets one. 35 for no wicket, New Zealand. That one coming back into John Wright off the pad, runs away behind square. He'll pick up a leg by. I'm sure he can get a bat to it. In fact, it is a leg by. So 37, the score creeping up. There's the Terry Alderman statistics. 33 years of age. He's developed into a very good swing bowler. Been around for a while.
Yes, he has. Of course, he had that spell with the Australian Rebel side in South Africa, and therefore wasn't allowed to play for a couple of years. But he's, you know, nearing 34 and nearly 150 wickets.
Half-hearted appeal, really. Franklin well forward. He looked to be outside the off stump. I don't think it was particularly convincing from the Australians. Certainly Steve Dunn not interested. Looking for a bit of room, John Wright, and he gets it away successfully behind point. Picks up at least two. Trevor Franklin not interested in coming back for three. And he's Border himself down there on the backward point boundary. So two more to John Wright. Score creeping up at 39 for no wicket in the context of this game, chasing 110. That's a pretty good start. So John Wright waiting for Greg Campbell. And he'll get runs in the same place. This time Border chasing it again, but it's two more.
So it's Alderman bowling to Trevor Franklin. Full of length, well driven by Franklin. Big Carl Rackerman's got the chase down to long off. Alderman took the sting off it. That's a couple of runs for Trevor Franklin, which moves him to 26 and New Zealand to 43. This was a ball full of length by Terry Alderman, swinging a little away from the right-hander, but Franklin onto the front foot, and I'll tell you what, that was not far from a caught and bowled, was it? Little aerial for a time, and Franklin's going to come back for the second. John Wright will be running to the danger end. He makes it comfortably as the throw comes in from deepish mid-on. A couple of runs for Trevor Franklin takes him over to 28.
John Wright on 16, and here's Taylor. Good aggressive stroke from John Wright, but a nice piece of fielding down at mid-off by Jeff Marsh, and no run for John Wright.
He's over pitching, in fact. Taylor was a full toss. Didn't quite get hold of it. Seemed to surprise John Wright a little bit.
So a change of approach here, John, from Peter Taylor, coming round the wicket now to the left-hander.
Yes, possibly with him going over, the ball turning away, he just couldn't really get a line at John Wright. By coming around, he can angle it more into him and force him to play.
Wright goes after him this time, but once again hits it straight to the fieldsman. This time it's Terry Alderman fielding backward a point. Well, that's not a bad delivery from Rackerman, as Trevor Franklin thrust forward towards it.
Yes, good ball. Just leaving him off the pitch and pushing forward, as you see.
It's interesting with Rackerman that he comes so wide of the crease, and yet he's still able to get the ball to straighten up and go away from the right-hander. That's quite disconcerting as a batsman, because you're trying to cover the stumps and then all of a sudden the ball's leaving you.
Once again, Rackman beating Franklin as the ball takes the pad. 47 without loss.
He's a tall man, Carl Rackman, and that one actually bounced a little more on Trevor Franklin, and as opposed to that previous delivery that left him carried on. So a little disconcerting for Trevor Franklin.
Trevor actually spoke to me this morning, and he said that he found Carl a little bit difficult to pick up last night. He's a big shoulder bowler, really. He, you know, he comes over all arms and legs, and Franklin said he had trouble.
Once again, Rackham able to beat Franklin, who was pushing forward and take it on the pad. This is not a bad over from Carl Rackham, and Trevor Franklin hasn't looked all that comfortable.
He's good ball here, and that one came back at him and rose rather sharply.
I think you know, Trevor's got to look to just try and put everything out of his mind in terms of what's happened in the over, and try and concentrate on watching the ball leave Carl's hand, trying to pick it up early, get in line with it, and play it accordingly off the pitch.
That's the end of the over from Rackham. Good one too from him. 47 without loss, New Zealand. Well, this could be a bye here as it beats Healy. That ball spinning quite a little bit, and Healy not able to get a hold of it and concedes a bye. So it's all very quiet and serene here at the Basin Reserve at the moment. Franklin lifting and is caught. Trevor Franklin losing patience and swinging wildly on the onside is well caught by Jeff Marsh, wide at mid-on.
He's well bowled by Peter Taylor, and he really lured Franklin into that shot, and the ball wasn't quite there, dropped on him and turned, and he didn't get hold of it. Let's have a look at it. Sort of bottom end of the bat, well caught out there.
He just threw it up, didn't he, Taylor, and just gave Franklin a little bit of air to try and hit over the top, and Trevor, he just dragged it around, really, and Marsh pulled in a really good catch. That's a tragedy for Trevor, because he looked to be working really hard at his innings there, and full marks to Peter Taylor. He's done exactly what really Alan Border wanted.
Well, finally the breakthrough for Australia, and they'll be rather pleased about that. This was a good delivery. Taylor bowling, just giving it a bit of air, spinning it, going for the shot, Franklin, not getting hold of it properly, hit it in the air out there, and it was well taken.
Andrew Jones coming out then to replace Trevor Franklin. New Zealand still pretty well placed, 48 for the loss of 1. And that partnership lasting for well over 2 hours, so Andrew Jones has had a fair wait. Nicely turned by John Wright. Hit it fairly fine. Might look for a second one here. But Marsh has it in the air very quickly. And in fact, it was a leg by. It travelled very quickly from the thigh pad. But another run for New Zealand, so it's 49 now for the loss of 1.
Rackham starting a new over, bowling to John Wright. And if you think you haven't seen many runs scored recently, well, you're right. The last run was scored at about 20 minutes to 5, 27 minutes ago.
Yes, that sounds terribly tedious. In fact, it's far from dull here, because there's a great battle of wits going on. Australia bowled out for 110, New Zealand 49 for 1. The scoreboard had 49 for 2 for a moment, but it's mended its manners. It's now back to 1. And it really is, it's a game of chess being played. Fascinating.
And Andrew Jones has his first runs. Working it up through square leg. This should be worth a couple for him as Greg Campbell comes around to do the fielding. So the drought has broken, for the moment anyway. And the New Zealand 50 is posted. 51 is the score for 1, with Andrew Jones getting 2.
It's a great test of temperament on a batsman if you can bat for a long time and see naught against your name without fretting. And Jones has got nothing if not a good temperament, but he was in no hurry to get off the mark, was he? He just waited until he got the one he could nudge away, and he has become a pretty remarkable and consistent performer at number 3, and I'm a great admirer of his.
And that's worth a single for him, out to square leg again, or just behind. Steve Waugh makes the pickup. So Andrew Jones goes to 999 runs in Test matches and the milestone. We'll have to wait for just a little bit longer. Now John Wright coming back into strike. Rackerman's going to come around the wicket to him. But I notice now that Rackerman has got mid-wicket or square leg protected more than it was before, with the man deepish out to about 3/4 of the way to the boundary. Just the 2 slips though. So John Wright with the single goes to 17. Jones on 3.
If there's any chance we could look at that shot again, because Wright seemed to me to move quite a long way, and I don't remember him doing this always, just before, as the ball was bowled, or just before it was bowled. He seemed to straighten up in his stance, and I was rather interested to see why he was doing that.
So a milestone of some significance not far away for Andrew Jones. He faces up to Carl Rackerman. Running through for his 1,000th run in Test cricket. Well played, Andrew Jones, in just his 15th Test match. Round of applause around the ground for the feat. Andrew Jones perhaps not aware of the fact that he has made it to the 4-figure mark. But that's well played. Just 24 innings. His 24th innings, in fact, in progress at the moment, so the average ticks over to exactly 50.
You certainly can't complain about that, can you, having a Test average of 50? Rather appropriate, in fact, that it should be exactly 50 at a moment like this.
Well, an absolute feast of runs in that over compared to what's come recently. 5 off it, 54 for 1. Jones using his feet, getting to it on the full. Rackerman fumbles out on the covers. Big chase on here for Campbell. That was well hit by Jones. Used his feet beautifully to it. And gets a couple of runs. Carl Rackerman doing the fumble. In fact, it hit him on the wrist out in the covers. And it's painful. But that was a good shot.
Good shot, and actually Rackerman was unlucky. He deflected the ball away. Campbell was going to back Rackerman up, and it deflected it to his right, and Campbell couldn't change direction in time. Isn't it interesting, Peter, talking to Martin Kress, someone who's absolutely involved in it, knows it all? I mean, one learns so much, doesn't one? And I'm sure people sitting at home would have been fascinated. And here we have Taylor bowling with his strange leg side field, and really what we want is the orthodox setting. It is fascinating.
New Zealand began today at 18 without loss. Play didn't start until 3:30. They're playing just the one session through until approximately 6:30. They have to bowl 44 overs. Further 16 overs have to be bowled after this one from Taylor. Andrew Jones not totally confident about that, looking to see how his leg stump was. As he came forward and was beaten a bit by the spin, didn't cover it fully. Oh, that's a mis-stumping by Ian Healy. A definite chance going a-begging with Jones going down the wicket to Taylor, beaten. And look at the Australian keeper. That really was a bit of a gimme. And Ian Healy having a horror match. Out for a duck yesterday with a bad shot, missing a fairly straightforward stumping there. The ball at reasonable height, and he fluffed it. Let off for Jones, he's 6.
Yes, Healy is an admirable bat at times. I just never think he's the best of wicket-keepers, because he does, for unaccountable reasons, perhaps miss things. I think he tries to come up too soon and doesn't stay down, you know, squatting down there quite long enough.
Sharp piece of fielding. It's Stephen Ward, short mid-wicket. The over completed by Peter Taylor. Unlucky for him, he didn't get his second wicket. He's got 1 for 8 from 12, Peter Taylor. Ian Healy was the culprit there. Right 17. Jones still there on 6, 57 for 1. It's a lonely walk for Ian Healy as he rues that opportunity. So he goes down behind the wicket to take up his position. Look at it from side on. The height of the ball was very reasonable. In fact, it went straight into Healy's gloves. He just seemed to grab for it.
Single here for the New Zealand captain. Right 18, New Zealand now 58. For the loss of 1, just 52 runs behind the Australian first innings total of 110. All right, trying to open out a little there. The ball's gone down towards third man. Have to wait for the umpire here, see exactly what happened. Another bye conceded. So Ian Healy not having a great time of it out there at the moment. .59 for the loss of 1, New Zealand. Nicely nudged away by Jones. Border racing after it, but just the 1 run taken.
Boot had been on the other foot and Jones and Ward had been batting. They'd have done everything they could to have got 2 there and probably would have done so, wouldn't they? And as you were quite right, that other single that Wright declined out there to square leg, I can't think what he was doing because there was a long run now.
Well, John Wright down on strike now. Wright is on 18, Jones 7, New Zealand 60 for 1. Wright gets a full toss and runs with the shot this time. And gets a single for it, as Taylor over-tossed on that occasion.
So it's Greg Campbell bowling. We've seen Rackerman have a spell. We've seen Terry Alderman open up with a 7-over spell today as well from the northern end. Peter Taylor bowling so well and so economically. Taylor, the off-spinner, currently with figures of 1 for 10 from 13 overs. Greg Campbell from Tasmania, one of 2 Tasmanians in this Australian side, and he's got just 1 slip. 2 men in catching positions in front of the wicket. Difficult pitch upon which to drive, but if the ball is up there, you can still do it. Andrew Jones facing up to Campbell. That's a typical Andrew Jones shot, hit it with a good deal of power and a slight misfield in the covers by the Australian vice-captain Jeff Marsh, and the chance for a bonus single for Andrew Jones. Seen Andrew Jones play this kind of shot a few times, haven't we?
We have. It's a typical Andrew Jones shot. He gets up on his toes, doesn't he? Sometimes airborne, and really gives it a good thump.
Alan Border doing the tidy-up work out at deep extra cover. 63 for 1. Campbell now to John Wright. No run. The over completed by Greg Campbell. 63 for 1. But as we've stressed so often this afternoon, the field that Peter Taylor has at the moment is not really for that sort of ball, is it? He's only got, 2 men in what you'd call defensive positions on the offside, one at orthodox extra cover and one at mid-off. There's nobody at point, there's nobody in the covers.
Yes, that's right. Thing being with Peter Taylor is he's getting enough turn to come in towards the stumps. It's very difficult to hit against that turn, and so you don't really need those gaps covered on the offside. In fact, you want to really entice the batsman to hit into the offside.
So Jones gets the ball away behind point. Couple of runs. In fact, it's going to be 3 for Andrew Jones. And the New Zealanders really scurrying between the wickets. Dean Jones does the fielding. Andrew Jones, during the course of this innings, when he reached 4, brought up his 1,000 runs in Test cricket. And plenty of space in that part of the field, the way Alan Border's got his fieldsman position. So Jones, with that 3, goes to 11. John Wright is 20. Around the wicket to the left-handed right. The end of the over from Peter Taylor, 66 for 1.
So Alan Border coming into the attack. We saw him briefly in the one-day series. 67 for the loss of 1. Andrew Jones on 12, facing Border. And with me is John Morrison.
Yes, Grant, a bit frustrating for the Australians out here because the seamers aren't really getting too much from the wicket. It is slow and low, and the New Zealanders are getting onto the front foot. They're playing well, so he's resorted to an all-spin attack. While Border is not a front-line spinner, he is very useful, and maybe with turning the ball away from Andrew Jones, he can get an edge or lure him into a false shot. It's all a bit slow out here from New Zealand's point of view. 67 and 47 overs, but they're still in the driver's seat. There's Alan Border. There's the match statistics. Look at that, 115 matches.
Yes, well, bowling does make up a big part of his record, of course. 28 wickets in Test cricket. Like John Morrison.
It's a few more than me.
More Test though, John.
Oh, he's had more chances, hasn't he?
Well, he got pretty quickly onto a length there. That was a good over bowled to Andrew Jones by Alan Border. And it's 67 for the loss of 1.
Yes, well, interesting first over. Watch this last ball, and it's a bit of turn. They're not turning it a lot. Andrew Jones, interesting, because he goes back often to the slow bowler, and that was an example of it. But slow process out there, as I was saying. The wicket is slow, it is low, but it's not easy to score runs quickly. And the Australians have the dilemma that with only 110, they have to really mix defence with attack. They haven't got too many runs to play with. But here we've got Taylor changing ends, bowling from the northern or R.A. Vance stand. So interesting to see if he gets any more or less turn. He'll be bowling with a slight nor'wester. Very nice conditions here now at the Basin Reserve after a very mixed start to the day.
Yeah, 67 for 1, 18 without loss it was overnight. Play not starting today till 3:30. And at that point, it was deemed that 44 overs would be bowled. Well, we still have 10 left. So I suppose it'll be, unless Border and Taylor bowl through, it'll be around about 6:30, I would think. But if these two carry on, then it might be a little earlier than that.
Yes, certainly. It looks that it's well in hand at the moment. So often we get behind with this overs business. First-class cricket, particularly in New Zealand, we find we're playing till 7:30.
Dropped short by Taylor, and Wright swinging it away on the leg side. That's a good shot, and that's 4 runs. Well, John Wright has been waiting and waiting for the bad ball, and finally it arrived, and he's put it away.
Yes, a bad ball by Taylor, and that's an example of the wicket's pace. No pace in it at all, and he dropped it short, and it sat up there, spun away a bit. Well played, John Wright. Swung it away. The man fairly square out there, couldn't catch up with it. In fact, he was just backward square.
It's a full toss this time, and Wright swings it away. He won't get to 4 this time. In fact, he'll only get 1 run. So Taylor just struggling a bit as he changes ends. Now bowling from the northern end. Wright gets a single to go to 25. New Zealand 72 for the loss of 1. Have lost Trevor Franklin today, and this was his dismissal.
Yes, this was a good ball from Taylor because he gave it a little more flight, and Franklin tried to play a forcing shot. It wasn't quite to the ball. It spun on him. He got it near the bottom of the bat, didn't get hold of it properly, hit it in the wide-ish mid-on, and Marsh did very well to get hold of it. He concentrated well up to that point, Trevor Franklin. He looked like he was setting himself for a very long innings, but that was a bit out of the blue, that. He seemed to lose a bit of concentration, but we must give some credit to Taylor because it was a very good delivery. So Alan Border coming over the wicket to the left-handed John Wright. I don't imagine Alan Border would be so keen on bowling to Wright because he will turn the ball into right, he'll be able to kill any semblance of spin. But he's got a man short on the leg side and a man catching about 12 metres on the leg side.
For the loss of one.
Yes, I think we'll have an intriguing day tomorrow, and New Zealand will be trying to get into a commanding position, establish a big lead. Australia will be very keen, of course, to stop them, and so it will be very intriguing cricket. And I think this test match holds a great deal more in the remaining 3 days.
Poor John Wright's managed to squeeze this one away down towards third man. Peter Taylor has a long, long chase. The ball's going to pull up, but the batsmen are going to have time for an easy 3. Not a terribly convincing stroke from Wright, but effective enough.
Yes, but surprising that he was able to get that ball down into the slip region, getting an edge. The ball turning into him and very slow.
John Wright has gone to 28, and New Zealand 75 for 1. Alan Border now coming to the end of his second over. Oh, and this time it's Jones who squirts it away down to third man. And there'll be 2 runs here for Andrew Jones. So 2 to Jones. He goes to 14. Let's go back to the second last ball of the over. This is Border bowling to Wright.
Yes, well, that was a fullish delivery, very full, in fact, and didn't quite hit it square, as you see. John Wright getting a thick outside edge, and it ran away. Very slow pitch, this, but it still managed to run away down to find third man. This was the next ball. Andrew Jones, who was then on strike after that 3, looked to be turning it into the leg side. Turned the bat reasonably early and got that leading edge, but it stayed on the ground. Ran away just past first slip.
So Alan Border just troubling the New Zealand batsman towards the end of that second over of his. Now it's back with Peter Taylor, who's going to come round the wicket to bowl to John Wright. Wright is on 28. Jones is 14. New Zealand 77 for 1. Remember that Australia yesterday scored 110.
Quite appreciable turn on this wicket, but it is slow turn. Probably one of the slowest pitches we've seen at the Basin all year, and that's a result of the heavy rain, 3 days of it earlier in the week.
Wright pulling away again on the leg side, but there's a man stationed out there on the mid-wicket boundary, Jeff Marsh, and just the 1 run this time for John Wright. He is 29 now.
Yes, Taylor doesn't seem to have settled down at all since he's changed ends, bowling from the northern end. This was so slow that Wright got it almost on the bottom of the bat, but he managed to clear the field all right. Only got 1 run in the end. He'd be a bit disappointed because it was a bad delivery. He would have hoped to have been able to swing it away for 4. Wonderful concentration, Andrew Jones. He's got a marvellous record. Hasn't played too many tests, 14 in fact. Average of nearly 50, but very quiet chap, but really concentrates.
Yes, I suppose you've got to know Andrew Jones a little better this season, John, having worked with the Wellington team, of which he's a member.
Yes, he's not one of the more vocal members of the team. As I say, keeps very much to himself. Really doesn't get involved in a lot of the wider team activities in terms of tactics.
That's a lovely straight drive from Jones, and that should go all the way. That's a fine stroke, 4 runs.
Yes, well played, Andrew Jones. Over pitching Peter Taylor. Not a good ball, hitting it straight down the ground. Well timed. It ran away very comfortably for 4. Here it is again, over pitching, hit it just in the right spot. He beat mid-on, couldn't get across, mid-off also. So well done, Andrew Jones. That score's creeping up all the time, 82 now for 1. Remember, 110 Australia all out for. So things looking good for New Zealand. It's been a slow, long haul. What are we into? 52nd over.
7 overs remaining in the day's play. Wright gives himself room, plays it nicely, square of the wicket on the offside. Long chase out there for Campbell, and the batsmen have time for another 3 runs. So the run's starting to come now. Just as Martin Crowe felt that if the bowling loosened up, the New Zealand batsmen would cash in. They're doing just that. Here's Terry Alderman now at 85 for the loss of 1, bowling to John Wright. Wright again, pulling it away. Desperate attempt to pull it in by the fieldsman, but it's gone to the fence. 4 to Wright. Good shot, John Wright.
Well, a bit of a loosener from Terry Alderman for the first ball of his new spell, and John Wright able to cash in. This ball dropped short on the slow pitch, and it just sat there, and John Wright swung it away to the leg side.
First boundary that's been hit off Terry Alderman. And Wright puts it away, and that's 3 boundaries now to John Wright. He's 36. New Zealand edging up towards that Australian total of 110. Alderman with a slower delivery that time.
Yes, a little more circumspect, getting it in the right place. Terry Alderman, a very steady bowler. Outswinger predominantly, but of course he's bowling to the left-hander, so that's coming into him, but tries to get the ball to angle across the left-handed Wright. Into his 11th over. Only 16 runs coming from, 10.2 overs. So a good performance overall, but he'll be searching for a wicket. .89 for 1, New Zealand, so comfortable position and all sorts of vantage points around the Basin Reserve. Spectators sitting on the top of the fence, and more orthodox position there in front of the Vance stand. Looks like a building over the road, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice little picnic area over there, John. Some people will do anything not to pay to get in.
That's right.
Alan Border starting a new over. This is his 4th, bowling to Andrew Jones.
Border, left arm orthodox spinner coming around the wicket to the right-handed Andrew Jones, attempting to spin the ball away from him. Reasonably attacking field. There's 2 men in short just forward of the wicket. 1 on the off, 1 on the on.
New Zealand scoreboard or score looking very healthy at 89 for 1. Border now bowling to Jones. Jones hits it back and is caught and bowled by Alan Border. What a good catch. He had to go very low, got both hands to it, and Andrew Jones departs, caught and bowled by Border for 18. New Zealand 89 for 2.
Well, Alan Border coming round the wicket with his slow left arm as this is well pitched up. In fact, it's a full toss, and Andrew Jones hits it straight back to Alan Border, who does well to get down and take a good 2-handed catch. So Andrew Jones gone, hitting this full toss straight back to the bowler, Alan Border.
So that's a real breakthrough for Australia, and Border did extremely well to hang on there. He's delighted, and well he might be.
Yes, tragedy for New Zealand, losing Andrew Jones just before stumps. And that'll bring Mark Greatbatchell. Maybe we could see a night watchman in tonight. In fact, Martin Snedden's the man making his way to the wicket. So New Zealand have decided to employ the services of a night watchman to protect their frontline batsman. And the man with the job is Martin Snedden. Terry Alderman coming round the wicket to the left-handed John Wright. Only 1 slip in, man catching short on the offside and on the on.
Well, the ball's in the air and an appeal. Not out, says umpire Steve Dunn. Alan Border took it. The Australians felt they had a bat pad there.
Yes, interesting. I don't think it was total conviction. Alderman, the bowler, just coming into the pad, angling in. It lobbed away in the air. Alan Border took it. There was a loud appeal for the bat pad. Let's have another look. I think he jammed the bat in behind the pad, and that was the noise, or the double noise. Big appeal, but umpire Steve Dunn says no.
Here's Alderman now bowling to John Wright. A little edge, and I think he's been caught behind. He has. New Zealand lose their skipper, John Wright, as Alderman just manages to catch the edge of Wright's bat. And that's a major breakthrough for Australia. New Zealand 89 for 3.
Terry Alderman coming round the wicket here to the left-handed John Wright, and he got a little edge on it. And Ian Healy, the keeper, picked it up well just above the grass. So John Wright gone. Third wicket for New Zealand gone. 89 the score.
So Mark Greatbatch is the new batsman.
It's interesting, isn't it? Mark Greatbatch now in at the crease. Martin Seddon came in to protect him as the night watchman, but it wasn't him that went out. It was John Wright, the man at the other end, that went out. But here he is at the crease, about to face this man, Terry Alderman.
Here's Alderman now bowling to the new man, Greatbatch.
All of a sudden, we've got a far more attacking field. We've got men hovering around the bat. 2 slips in. We've got 2 men catching forward of the wicket. In fact, we've got 3 really, because the man about 12 metres from the bat in the short mid-wicket position. And there's a mid-off and a mid-on in the orthodox positions.
.89 for the loss of 3.
Well, that ball illustrated the pace of the wicket. Greatbatch nearly playing a little bit early for that, because it didn't arrive, and hit it in the air away back down the wicket, but it didn't carry far enough to be a catch. But illustration there of the slow pace of the wicket.
So New Zealand really have to see these last few minutes out without the loss of any further wickets. Australia already have come back in the last 20 minutes or so, with Jones and Wright both dismissed. Here's Alderman.
No.
Yes, good breakthrough for Australia, picking up these 2 wickets on 89. And New Zealand have to battle out of it again. We've got Ken Rutherford, Jeff Crow, the established or recognised batsmen to come, but Richard Hadley, Ian Smith, John Bracewell, all very useful with the bat. Danny Morrison, the number 11.
Alderman now coming to the end of his 13th over. He currently has 1 for 16, bowling to Greatbatch. The Australians are going to shout for anything in the last couple of minutes. That was clearly a long way forward, Greatbatch. And Alderman coming round the wicket wouldn't help much either.
No, rather ambitious indeed. Both batsmen yet to get off the mark. So a tense last over. And it looks like we've got a little grizzle about a shadow in the middle of the pitch. Mark Greatbatching asking that Alan Border remove himself from a position which casts a shadow. So he's kneeling down. Well, I wonder how long he'll stay down.
Even then, it's still shadow's still on the pitch.
Well, we've got Alan Border, the captain, kneeling in a shortish, wideish mid-off position. All he needs is a little mat out there, isn't it? Is he facing the right way? Is it?
Yeah, roughly.
It's south, isn't it?
Or sort of east, isn't it? The neck is east. East of something.
He couldn't move too freely for that. It actually ballooned off the pad. That brings up.
New Zealand stuck on 89 for 3. They were 89 for 1 at one stage. Great Batch goes back and slams it away backward a point. It was a short ball. And Great Batch, even though it was towards the end of the day, decided he'd put it away, and he did well. 4 runs.
Well, brave stuff in the last over from Great Batch. A little bit short and wide from Alderman. He clips it away backward a point for 4.
So New Zealand finally get off the total of 89, where they've been, while 2 wickets have fallen. Great Batch takes it to 93 with that boundary. Now the last ball of the day. Well covered by Great Batch, and that is the end of the day's play, with New Zealand's 93 for 3 in reply to Australia's 110. We've only had 44 overs bowled today, and Australia fighting back in the last half hour to have New Zealand at 93 for 3.
Well, some hope at the end of the day for the Australians with a couple of late wickets. 3 for 93 looks a lot better than 1 for 89, at least from Alan Border's point of view. Trevor Franklin made 28, Andrew Jones 18 and John Wright 36, the top scorer of the match so far. Mark Greatbatch is 4 not out, and night watchman Martin Snedden is yet to score. Peter Taylor, Alan Border and Terry Alderman were the wicket takers, and between them they bowled 19 maidens, so it was slow going at times, the batsmen pretty watchful on a low, slow pitch. Well, Australia not at all out of this match, particularly if they can take a couple of early wickets tomorrow. Gordon Bray sought the thoughts of Simon O'Donnell at the end of the day's play.
Simon O'Donnell, frustrating for you sitting on the sidelines, but a very good fight back there by the Australians.
Yeah, certainly late in the afternoon turned the tables a little bit and really put us back into the game from a situation where it could have got quite nasty for us.
A couple of good catches there by some of the senior members?
Yes, senior members showing the way, which is a great thing, I think, in Test cricket. And, you know, it just showed, I think, the roles have been a little bit reversed in the last couple.
I'll show you a nice little highlights package now. We're going to pick up the action with Martin Snedden facing Carl Rackerman.
And that will be 4. Wait on the umpire. And it's off the bat. So Martin Snedden getting away from 6. A wry smile for Martin Snedden. He's still there.
Yes, this was an interesting... Oh, yes, he certainly got that one fine down the leg side. It didn't appear as if he got a bat on it initially, but certainly that replay showed it.
Runs to Martin Snedden. He started the day with a boundary off the first ball, and close to lunch he'll end it with a boundary. Delightful stroke by Martin Snedden.
And finally, Snedden releases the brakes. Shorter ball that sat up very nicely for him. 5 for 139.
Taylor dropped it short, and the wicket is just so slow that Snedden was able to watch it off the track, pick a gap and hit it in the gap.
That one sliding down to the boundary. Just opening the face and wide of second slip. Big shout, and he's gone. Alderman has broken through. Crowe coming forward. Alderman angling that ball into the right-hander, and that's a critical blow as far as Australia is concerned.
Well, I like the way Alderman was bowling. He was pitching the ball well up, and he's brought Crowe forward, and Crowe trying to hit the ball wide of mid-on, and a very good breakthrough for Australia. They really needed that one, and now if they take the new ball, they've got a real bonus. 6 wickets down, 150 on the board.
And coming out now in his very last Test match in New Zealand,
King Richard. Richard Hadlee, who wrapped up the Australian first innings taking 5 for 39, and spontaneous standing applause from many people on the hill as Hadlee comes out to the centre. Oh, and when Alderman can do that, why not? Finally, Snedden departs for 23. Neck and crop to Terry Alderman. New Zealand 7 for 151.
And it looked to be a reasonably well-constructed defensive stroke from Martin Snedden. There's just a wee gap there, the bat getting a little bit too far forward, and Martin Snedden, who's been struggling to be able to get his timing going, struggling to be able to come to grips with the slow pace of the pitch, after a very long time at the wicket, he's off.
He's gone next ball, though. Campbell gets a wicket. New Zealand 8 for 152. So Ian Smith on his way after surviving a drop chance from the previous ball. And Mark Taylor, he wasn't going to drop that one.
Well, Hadlee facing Campbell. And a mighty blow. Sting taken it out of it by Campbell. It might still just get to the boundary. It does quite convincingly. And Hadlee blasting that one back down the pitch. That one's quite safe. Long chase for Mark Taylor. And running all the way, much to the delight of the home supporters. Another boundary to Richard Hadlee. Mark Taylor having to run all the way from slip. So Hadlee goes to 11, 8 for 164. Richard Hadlee, his final test match for New Zealand. Woody Pfeiffer. And now a chance to really turn it around for New Zealand. Loud shout, he's out this time. Hadlee knew it. So Hadlee's on his way. Campbell gets his second wicket. 9 for 171. The lead to New Zealand is 61. Richard Hadlee out for 18.
And a beautiful slower ball. It was his leg break, or the one he brings out the back. Hadlee was beaten and deceived by the change of pace, and you could see he just tried to work it away.
A rousing reception for Richard Hadlee. I don't think it'll be the last time he bat for New Zealand in a test match. I'm sure he might bat in the second innings here. Maybe not, but a warm reception for Richard Hadlee.
And there's almost an outside edge to Healy, and the new ball has been taken.
Yes, it just looked as though it didn't carry, but it's going to be very interesting to see how much this new ball does. Just left him a little bit off the track, and the frustration of not carrying through to Healy. The new ball, of course, should be full of more bounce and carry, but not on this occasion.
No third man. Jeff Marsh in pursuit. So Danny Morrison now to double figures. He's 11, and it's 9 for 196. Bracewell's on 17. And that's the 200 up for New Zealand. Bracewell advancing to 19. And New Zealand with a lead now of 91. Here's the snick, and the catch is taken. Mark Taylor, his second. The innings is all over. New Zealand all out for 202. And a 4-wicket bag for Terry Alderman.
Now
outswinger, tried to drive, didn't get his foot there, and Mark Taylor, who is an outstanding slip swordsman, took it quite easily, but left foot wasn't anywhere near where the ball was, and ultimately it was just a matter of time, but that time was just slipping away, and by taking the new ball late, it made it difficult to, in fact, get the tail enders out.
So a late tee taken because of the fact that the last wicket stand went on for close to an hour. In fact, 59 minutes between Bracewell and Danny Morrison, putting on 31 runs. The chant, Hadlee, Hadlee, start of the second innings, Marsh facing. So a special moment in the Test match. Richard Hadlee bowling for the last time in New Zealand in a Test match. And first runs off the bat for Jeff Marsh. A delightful flick off the pads, a boundary. So out through square leg for Jeff Marsh. Signalled by umpire Steve Dunn. So none for 6. And away from a diving Smith. 4 runs to Jeff Marsh. Arms went up for a moment for the Kiwis, but quite safe for Jeff Marsh. Used to 13. None for 15. Fine square drive by Mark Taylor. Gets him off the mark. Winning backward a point for a boundary out near the John Reed gates. A very bright start by the Australians. Mark Taylor 4th. None for 20.
It is great to see a series being played in such good spirit. With all the issues of neutral umpires, it's great to see no complaints and things being very fair.
A loud shout by Richard Hadlee. He's out. Steve Dunn took a long time to think about that one. Big breakthrough for New Zealand and Richard Hadlee. Mark Taylor's out for 5. It's 1 for 27.
This ball bowled from Richard Hadlee. Deceiving Mark Taylor a little bit, bringing this ball back. The last ball, remember, went across. One just coming back in a little bit and probably just clipping the leg stump. Very well bowled.
Twice in the match, Mark Taylor out leg before wicket.
Oh, great fielding by Great Batch. That really was spectacular reaction. Gee, he's agile for his build.
Yes, he certainly is. Quite a big man, and Jeff Marsh has hit that quite well. It's scampered away, and we better not let any runs through, he says. Gets his creams dirty. Richard Hadlee will be happy about that. Just adds that little element of pressure to Jeff Marsh. David Boone drives beautifully. Mark Sten gets a hand to that just to slow it up. It would have been a certain boundary. But Franklin will get that in and restrict the Australians to 2.
That's that forearm jab of Marsh's, one of his favourite strokes. He plays it so well. So Marsh advancing now to 27. It's 1 for 38. Beautifully whipped off his toes. That one has the legs. Hadlee straying, and David Boone really boosting his confidence with that stroke.
His lovely shot, well timed, and David Boone is good at that shot. Richard Hadlee, I felt in this spell, has strayed a little on occasions down leg, and it may be because the wind is coming in from about cover position and fairly strong, and maybe pushing it across a little more than he would wish. But well timed, the shot.
Taken by Rutherford, he's dropped him. Marsh has been put down on 28.
Looked like he got an inside edge. Oh, and it went to him fairly sharply, but not a difficult catch. He's a bit close, and he expects it to pop rather than come at him fairly quickly, and that's what happened.
away from the diving Hadley. Hard work being done by Bracewell. But another boundary to Jeff Marsh. Takes him to 32. The 50 up for Australia. 1 for 50. The deficit after the first innings was 92. Taken by Smith. He's out. Boone is out. The breakthrough for New Zealand. Close to stumps on the third day. Jubilation for John Bracewell. Big breakthrough for the Kiwis. Boone is out. It's 2 for 50.
A little bit unlucky here, David Boone. He's gone to sweep the ball with his pad inside the line. Looks like it's hit his gloves, gone through to Smith, and he's caught it. And you can see by Boone's reaction that he's hit the ball. There's the dismissal again. Quite a good take by Ian Smith. He fumbled it, got right across, he didn't reach, and he kept very low. Look how low the keeper keeps. And there he is, and he's caught it, and Boone looks somewhat guilty.
Yes, he did a little, and I guess that last wicket of Boone really swung the pendulum back New Zealand's way. New Zealand have to win to take the Trans-Tasman Trophy, so you can bet your boots they'll be attacking all out tomorrow. Alan Border, of course, wants to win to show that the Australians deserve their reputation of the #2 side in the world, perhaps behind the West Indies. If there's anything in Australia's favour, I guess it's that Jeff Marsh and Peter Taylor are both great fighters, and they are still at the crease when play resumes tomorrow. Trying not to confuse you, just let me remind you that New Zealand comes off daylight saving time tomorrow, and so do some. New Zealand 220, so a lead of 92. Australia still trailing by 39, 2 for 53. So it stumps on day 3, a very absorbing situation. Hope you can join us tomorrow. Until then, Steve Rebilliard for ABC Sport. Hadley, and a few question marks about this decision, but did it go down leg side? Doesn't matter now. He's out 5, and he was at the crease for 25 minutes and 1 boundary in his innings of 5. Next man to go was David Boone. This also yesterday. He made 12, having been credited with 4 overthrows overnight. Caught by Ian Smith. Very smart chance. First of John Bracewell's wickets. And down the leg side. And Ian Smith juggling this one before finally taking it, and no doubt about that one, David Boone was quickly on his way and realised he was out. So Boone, 12 runs in just over an hour, 2 boundaries and 34 deliveries. Third man out was Jeff Marsh. He was the first wicket to fall today. He went before lunch, and it was 3 for 91 when he did go. Well caught by Rutherford. Ken Rutherford had dropped a couple of chances, but this was a very smart one. Stuck out the left hand, it stuck, and Jeff Marsh on his way for 41 to make it 3 for 91. And he was there for a little over 2 hours, 6 boundaries, faced 106 deliveries, a good innings from Marsh, who's back in form. Next man to go was the night watchman, Peter Taylor. He did more than watch. He played an outstanding innings and got to 87, the Australian Devils number, and fell to a good catch behind off Danny Morrison. Smith taking it low down, and just a slight deviation off the pitch, and Taylor threw his head back because he knew he'd wasted a rare chance for him at a Test century. 87 runs in pretty smart time too, 3 hours, and he faced 155 deliveries, 8 fours. He strikes the ball very powerfully when he wants to, and that really, in the context of the rest of the Australian scorecard, is a very important contribution. Next man to go was Dean Jones. He was LBW. And if you haven't seen this dismissal, what do you think? He's up in the air. He's hit on the top part of the pad. And there's great discussion amongst the media at the Basin Reserve whether he should have been given out. But Steve Dunn said he was. Now, would that have cleared the bails? There's got to be some doubt about it. And if there's any doubt, maybe it should have gone Dean Jones's way. It doesn't matter now, because Dean Jones was out for a duck. 5 for 194, and he faced 2 balls. A rare failure for Dean Jones, who's been the shining light of this tour and indeed in Australia against Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So unfortunate for him, he didn't like the decision, but had to take it. Steve Waugh made the same score as he did in the first innings, 25, before he was well caught by Mark Greatbatch at point. Off the bowling of Richard Hadlee. Bit of a slash, couldn't keep it down. Greatbatch took the catch well enough, but telling Steve Waugh where the dressing room was is quite unnecessary and a little unsavoury. Anyway, that's the way Greatbatch plays the game. 6 for 232, 3 fours,